Alright, here we go. This is a tutorial video for the CHADS flows indicator that I have coded. Start over here in the Discord. It's an indicator that's based on CHADS OTS flow system. It allows you to designate key levels from QQQ, which is the options version of the NASDAQ, or the NQ, MNQ. And based on the open interest or the jexstream.com values, which is the gamma exposure, or what CHAD uses is the Greeks from Quantico Cap. You then receive buy-sell trade entries labeled according to which flow setup is currently valid. Those are all based on the Williams-VIX fix indicator. And if CHAD does make, say, minor changes to his entry criteria over the next little while as he's solidifying his strategy, I'll probably attempt to make those updates as well so that they are included and consistent with what he's doing. I've added a few reference videos that you can go through that CHAD has published if you're wanting more information about how exactly he looks at the Greeks in order to determine those flow setups. A lot of good information in there describing exactly what he's looking for. And then once again, you can obtain access here through this link. So coming over to the chart, we have the Williams-VIX at the bottom, and on the chart around the current price, it'll plot out the various QQQ levels that are valid for the day, just as a background reference so that you can see exactly where we are at all times. Once you pop open the indicator, in the input section, I've got all 5 flows listed out. And what you're going to have to do at the beginning of the day is you're going to have to go and analyze a chart, whether you choose to use, say, the open interest, or the gamma exposure, or CHAD's Quantico Cap software that he has come to an agreement with Quantico Cap on, or you directly subscribe from Quantico Cap. It's probably a better value if you want the Quantico Cap stuff to go with CHAD, since I think it's the same cost, $200 a month currently as I'm doing this video. Anyway, so you analyze those charts along the ideas that CHAD has presented, and you get the important levels, you input them into the indicator, and then throughout the day you will receive prints for buy or sell, depending on which flow is valid, and be able to easily distinguish what type of trade you're supposed to be taking right now and what your target is. So for a quick analysis here, this chart is obviously no longer valid. That's from the other day, but we'll use it as kind of a reference and then pretend that certain levels exist over on the other chart in order to demonstrate the functionality of the indicator. So here we have, let's say we started at 613 on the market open today. Flow number 1 is increasing interest, and you're starting in positive gamma, and that interest continues to increase up to a maximum bar, which is typically your green bar, and that would be your target. So if I were to use the data from this chart to put into the indicator, I'd want to put in 613 as my first significant increasing open interest bar, and then 615 would be my target. So it would look something like this: 613, 615, and if by chance you're having a hard time remembering what the dang flow setups are, there's a little information icon right here that I've coded in, where it'll pop up exactly what brief description of that flow is. So flow number 1, price is in positive gamma or open interest, and you have increasing interest to the target gamma bar, which is the green bar, or CHAD sometimes calls it the magnet bar. So once again, that biggest open interest bar on the chart that ends up usually getting colored green. So you put in those values, and then it'll show up on your chart. So let's fudge the numbers here a little bit so it'll show up on the chart. So when price is in between these two values, what the indicator will do is it will print these lines on your chart. And after it has printed those lines on your chart, since they're green lines, you're going to be looking for buys. And since it's in the flow 1 range for the day, every buy signal will be labeled with the appropriate flow number. So since this is going to be a flow 1 setup, each of the buys are labeled with a 1, indicating that it is going to be a flow 1 setup. Once again, these are just off of the WVF indicator or the Williams-VIX fix. And you can see that some are better than others, right? This is the range that the flow number 1 is valid in. But if you get in lower in that range, you're going to have a much higher risk-reward ratio to your target. Once price gets outside of this range, let's demonstrate that real quick here. Let's say the range was lower, one tick lower for each of those. Okay. Once price gets outside of that range, then the buy labels for flow 1 no longer show up. So you can see how several of those are now missing. And then once again, once the current price is outside of this range, the lines will disappear. So I just changed it to 616. So this right here is what the designation is right now. Say for our flow 1 setup, and you can see once price came into it, you got, say, a signal. It wouldn't have been a very good trade because you're right close to there. Same here with this one, it's essentially on the level. But since price is outside of this range, these levels do not show up. But the signals for getting in on the trades still remain. So once again, that's what it would look like if you, say, had those initial flow 1 setups at the beginning of the day, but then price has gone outside of it. Those green lines go away to help you realize that you're no longer looking for flow 1 setups. Pretty straightforward. So then you have flow number 2, which is a sell setup. You're starting off in the negative gamma or negative open interest, and it breaks a significant bar in that zone, and then you're going to be wanting to target the next lower bar in that zone. So example here on this chart, if you were to come down and break 607, which is a major negative interest bar, and then you got a sell indication somewhere in here, then you could target 605, which is the next significant bar. I'm not going to go through each of these flow setups. If you want to review Chad's videos, he goes over them in depth, gives you examples for each of these flows. Most of you are probably already familiar with them. And once again, you can apply those same concepts from my experience just using the open interest. It's very comparable, and it's a static set of levels throughout the day. They don't change. So once you come in here at the beginning of the day, you put those values in, you won't have to go in and update them throughout the day like you would if you're using the gamma exposure or the Greeks. And it's that simple. So once again, you've got the tooltip here so that it'll pop up, give you a brief description of each of these. So flow number 2, I went over that. Flow number 3, it's going to be a reversal trade as well as flow number 4. I particularly don't like trading reversal trades. Chad has added them to a system in case, say, price has moved really far in one direction, it's overshot all the targets, and it needs to relax a bit and come back to one of those significant bars. And, that's, a good trade. I know he's been tracking them. He's got some limited stats on them so far, but I like to stay away from those. I don't feel are very good high-quality setups, and often you get bit more than you get paid out, in my opinion. But you've got the descriptions there to help you identify those. So basically, you've gone past the biggest open interest bar, or the biggest gamma bar, and then price gets tired. There's no more buyers, and so you get a sell signal, and you take that back to that major bar of interest. Same with the flow number 4. You've gone past the biggest negative interest bar, and there's no more sellers, sellers get tired, you get a buy signal, you write it back to that most important negative interest bar or negative gamma bar. Flow number 5, Chad says that's his bread and butter. He's got the most trade setups with there because it happens quite often. Basically, it's near the pivot point between open interest that's positive and open interest that's negative, or same thing on the Greeks or the gamma exposure, where it flips from negative to positive. Basically, you're looking for a bounce for a buy off of one of those first significant negative open interest bars, and then writing it up to either the first positive open interest bar or a significant open interest bar that is in the positive range. Last couple things down here. I think I need to get rid of these two. I don't think those are applicable anymore, but you've got the black and white label text. Basically, if you're on a white background, you're not going to see the white ones, so you need to flip it so they turn black, and will show up on your chart. You can show the VWAP, because Chad loves to use the VWAP still, so that's in there in case you want to use that. And then show current price. Basically, you can select that, and the current price will just show up right next to the end of the current bar. Market's closed, so it's not working right now, but that's what that does. I also need to get rid of that, and that's it. So that's just a quick summary of how to use this. The last thing to go over is the alerts. You come in here with the alerts. It has 5 available. The alerts will be most useful to people who are trading this using the open interest data, because the levels don't change throughout the day. Come in, you set the values once, and that's what they are throughout the day. If you're using the gamma exposure or the Greeks, Chad often updates them throughout the day as they do shift and change fairly often. He says they don't change very much after the first 15 minutes or so, so I have not been following them super closely. That may be true, so maybe after the first 15-20 minutes of the market open, they get set, and then you won't have to come in here and update these. But basically, every time you change a value in here, you will have to come in here and reset the alerts every time. But then once again, I don't know how helpful the alerts will be to people. This is a 1-minute time frame indicator. So if you're not at your chart ready to get into a trade when the signal goes off, chances are price is going to move without you, and you're going to miss your opportunity. And so you should probably be at your computer watching price go and executing when the signals come up and the bar closes, and that'll get you into your trade. So that's that. If you've got any questions, just hit me up in the Discord. Happy to answer any and at any time. And let's get this going and make some money. Appreciate you guys listening in. Hopefully that helps. See you later.